Hey guys, welcome back to my 17th devlog of the series. There hasn't been too many uploads recently, but I have been making a fair bit of progress. I'll touch upon a couple of ideas that I have been working on, but I won't go too much in detail of them because I think a few of them will need their own video in the future as they're quite large areas. So some of these include the new audio system, persistence, which deals with saving the game, choosing between dialogue options if the NPC has more than one, such as trading and quests and such. New test UI elements and a complete rework to the lighting system. There's also quite a few small bug fixes that I worked on. I try to fix them as much as I can early as possible so I don't have to deal with them in the future and so I don't have to build upon rubbish code. To begin, we'll talk about the lighting system. So the entire lighting system actually got a rework and is now extremely more efficient. I'd really like to thank the OrangePixel for his help on the design for this, as I was quite new to some OpenGL programming techniques and he definitely helped along, as well as replying to me whenever I had any questions comparing some of the code. I definitely recommend checking out his channel and I'll leave a link to that in the description. This is the current lighting system that I have in place, which kind of, as you can see, each time it changes between sunrise, day, night, there's lots of popping. Right there, there's lots of popping between each of the transitions, but this is because of the way that it actually works. So to show you how it works, I'll show you the tiled map editor, and as you can see there are 4 textures covering the entirety of the map, which is like an overlay for each of the different times of day. So we've got sunrise, night, sunset and day. Each of these will turn on and off based upon what time of day it is, so they won't just turn on and off, they will smooth into each other. So one of the opacity that it's changing from will decrease and the other opacity for the other light map will increase, so it can kind of fade into each other. This doesn't exactly work as you'd expect with the static textures, as that's why you can see the popping between each of the states. Also within the light maps, you would, in your photo editing software, you would need to add in light glows of where you know there will be light in the game. So as an example, I had to add in a light glow here because I knew I was going to place a house in this position. However, this doesn't get too easy, as if you were to try and change the map and add a building, add an item or add torches or whatever around the area, you would actually need to add in each of these and update each of the textures for each of the light map sources. This can be a bit tedious when you keep changing the map constantly or make tweaks to the map and it gets inefficient. Switching over to the branch that I have in my code, which has the new light system in place, as you can see, the transitioning between different times of day is a lot smoother. We actually have a frame buffer over the top layer of our screen, and what this does is we add in a post-process overlay which will change the colors only on that frame buffer. So we're not touching the game behind this screen. There's just a thin layer over the top of the screen which will be modified for our needs to change the color of the screen. This is a lot more efficient, as in the previous version I'd have to have 4 different textures which would modify and slowly change the opacity between each one, so we're constantly rendering a new texture over the front of our game. The benefit of how we're doing it in this post-processing way is that we can constantly change and tweak the colours that we need for each of the time zones however we want it. And as you can see, it's actually just this one line of code that will update the ambient light and item lights, which I'll talk about later, and then render this onto the screen. So if I was to just comment out this one line of code, then we actually won't see any changes between the time zones, as this is just a overlay over the screen. It's a lot more efficient, as I previously said, so rather than having lots of static images constantly changing and changing the opacity of each one and rendering them over screen, we're actually just changing the color that is being cleared over the frame buffer in order to change the color that is being displayed. Rather than having a standard text such as this, I messed around with a few ideas for the heads-up display. One of the early concepts, as you can see at the top, is a bar form. I decided to go for a more minimalist approach. Eating and drinking foods and drinks will allow the levels inside of the food and drink meter to increase, meaning your player is healthier. Also, walking around and interacting with things that will affect your health negatively will decrease the health bar. Finally, wearing clothing or going places with increased warmth levels will increase your temperature. Your character can be extremely cold or extremely hot, which will cause their own effects. So that's actually for the status UI. I actually do need to update the UI for the time, calendar, time of day, and so on, but this is going to be a further work in progress, and I'm not even sure I will have it on screen. So that's just still tweaking out some issues there. So persistence is currently in the game. What it does is it will scrunch up data that's in the game into a file, and then when needed it will load back that file into the game with the specified values. So just showing, once my player can walk up here between these, I press O as a key press. For now it's just a key press. In the future I'll have it as a pause menu item, or when the player sleeps in the bed or rests for the night. So once that is, it's saved, and if I reload the game, load game, it's a default, and now we are here. As you can see, there's actually a default save file, so this is the file it gets saved to. We've got the player x-axis, player y-axis, the inventory items, quicksort items, the days, and the map that the player is on. Oh, it also contains the time. So this is obviously just very basic values being saved to a file, and the file won't be left like this in plain text. It will actually have to be encrypted, so players can't modify the save files and to give themselves whatever they want to give them. A new audio system has now been implemented into the game as well. This allows for music and sounds to be played at different events, at different paces, at different times of the day, just any piece of music can now be played whenever needed. Right now I've only created one sound effect, which is using a bag of corn flour to create the sound of walking on snow. It's completely out of sync, but this was just to try the sound effect within the game itself. I need to start recording loads of different sound effects and start implementing into the game now that I have this new system in place. I do have ambient music which sounds really well with this game, but it's copyrighted, so I cannot show it in this video. So we'll just have to deal with the silence until I start creating my own music. Great. Multiple dialogue choices. Each NPC now has its own life essentially, so they offer different quests. You can trade with some of them, you can gain social skills with some of them, and this is reflected based on dialogue. So to begin with, we can actually have a base dialogue, which if the NPC has a quest but also can trade with them, it will actually show you a base dialogue first, in which you can actually choose which decision tree you decide to go down with. At the moment it's very basic, and because there's only a few different base trees that you can go down, but here is a look of what it looks like. So if you go what's up, you can continue on a help me find a book quest, but if you go to trade, it will actually begin the shop, which is still in early stages so far. Most of the code for this system is actually in place, but the UI is not. So this makes it difficult to actually show anything on screen. This is actually going to be slowly implemented and further on and hopefully shown in the next video. But as you can see that we have a lot of test data, and just the way things are moving in terms of crafting, we actually do have a lot of the code available. But again, like I said, you'll see a lot more of this in the next video, hopefully. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.